Hello. Wow. Okay. That's the best start of all. You've got to top that at the end, though. So, hello. Thank you so much for coming along. How are you all enjoying this this whole experience? Yeah? I think it's great. I think it's very interesting. So the session I'm going to give you now is, for me, the session I love the most. I absolutely love talking about this stuff, and I share my time now between directing films, talking about media technology. So I'm a master trainer for Adobe. That means I can train trainers. In fact, I train other master trainers, which means I train trainers who train trainers who train people. And I think, I wrote a book about teaching and learning that I think my colleagues might read, which would mean I've been a trainer. I think that works. So I could be grandmaster. Maxim Jago. We'll see. So I share my time between being a storyteller, I'm going to use that word, and talking about media technology. I'm also an avid ACI, Edius, wrote the book on Edius, and I teach a lot of video editing applications, and I work with TV stations around the world and film companies, helping them to produce films or to tell stories. And I speak as a futurist. I talk about emerging technologies, socioeconomic developments. We are moving towards a free economy, and it's going to be awesome. I talk about autonomous robotics and artificial intelligence and fusion. And we are almost there, where we'll be able to say tea, Earl Grey, hot, and it'll come on. It's a very geeky joke. So I have a lot of roles, but along the way, through my journey from starting making films at 15, I also wanted to understand life, the universe, and everything. In fact, I began at about 11 years old. I felt I understood technology. I could break things really well. And I wanted to understand everything else, and for me that was the universe. And I read a book by there's an American author actually called Richard Bach. Has anyone heard of Richard Bach? He wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull, Illusions. Everyone's too young. Come on, it's amazing book. So I read this book when I was 11, and it's about what reality is and how do we know and does it matter? And what I discovered was this philosophy thing. In fact, when I read the book, I literally cried after reading it, because I found one human being who was asking these questions that I was asking about what life is and what are we. And then I discovered that philosophy was a thing and that people have been asking these questions for thousands of years. For me, what makes film, and by film I mean anything that we would call a moving image, so motion graphics, animation, video, whatever you want, stop motion. What makes it magical is that, well, it's this, that the part of your brain that has experiences does not differentiate between an experience you're having now, something you remember, something you imagine, or something that you dream. It doesn't differentiate, which means that if you make a film where the lead character is somebody that your audience is able to empathize with. So they say, if you've got a hero who's a bad guy, don't make them too bad. You've got to feel like you want to spend time with them. If your audience can empathize with your main protagonist, they don't witness the protagonist's experiences. They literally have them with them. That is an incredibly powerful tool at your disposal as a storyteller. So I think, broadly speaking, there are two kinds of people working in the film industry today. I always forget the joke. It's people who break people down into two kinds and people who don't. No, there's there are people for whom it is a job. You get up in the morning, you go to work, and you go home again, and that's fine. That's great. It's a job. And then there are people who are the bards of the modern age. And hundreds of years ago, you'd have been sitting with a lute or a flute to add musical atmosphere. It's interesting that since the beginning of theatre, which was originally sacred in ancient Greece, music was used to shape the emotions of the audience. And now we know that for whatever reason that we can't yet fathom, when you hear something, it sidesteps your critical faculties in a way that things you see don't. And that's why when the music goes da da da, you get that tension, that anxiety, or when it's all happy and euphoric, you feel the way the music instructs you to, and unless you're a psychopath or a robot, there's nothing you can do about it. So now you know that with film, you have at your disposal a medium that is more than just a lute with a story being told. You've got every sense, really, and you're using reality itself as the medium. And I just think that's incredibly powerful. And a lot of what goes on in terms of your perception isn't real. Most memory is constructed. Future is imagined, as they say. I forget the quote now, the past is a foreign country, they do things differently there, the future is untrod territory. The only moment you're really experiencing anything is this one. But interestingly, it turns out you're barely experiencing this moment. What you're really experiencing is whatever you happen to be thinking about at the moment, whatever's on your mind. I'm telling you about storytelling. Well, I will eventually tell you about storytelling. It's going to happen at some point. But you might be thinking about that argument that you had this morning. And while you're thinking about that argument, you are literally experiencing the argument. There's a wonderful thing you can do if you want to know what somebody's feeling. Look at them very carefully and ask yourself, what am I feeling? Because it turns out that thanks to mirror neurons, you literally experience what other people are experiencing. That's why this thing works. When you observe a character having an experience, when you watch somebody climbing a tree, you instantly know how to climb the tree when it's your turn. You remember, this is where I need to lift my leg in this way to get this branch, because I remember how to do this. You don't think, oh, I observed that person do this thing. You weren't making notes because you experienced it. It's very powerful. And so, again, for me, film is the most incredible medium if you have something that you believe is worth saying. I say believe because, of course, we never know if things are worth saying. My girlfriend's always telling me that I'm not as funny as I think I am. And I keep telling her I'm training her to understand the extraordinary subtlety of my humour. She doesn't believe me. So, okay. So, let's just search like this. I don't know why this is not showing. So, in life, what you're going to find is that every day you're going to wake up, you're going to do some stuff, and then you're going to go to sleep again. And I guarantee you, if you're just coming out of college or you're studying right now and you're worrying about your future, I absolutely guarantee that this is going to be a thing that you do every day until you're dead. And even then, who knows? My father was a medium. He wasn't a large. No, that's a terrible joke. He was a. He was trained as a medium, and he claimed that he could see spirits. So I used to ask for rum, but he didn't think that was funny either. But whatever you do, you are going to spend the rest of your life asking why. Why am I this thing? Why am I doing this? Why did I become this? Why am I afraid of that? Why am I obligated in this way? What is it that makes me this thing? Why is my world this way? In ancient Greece, the Gnostics said that they said the macrocosm is inside the microcosm, as above, so below. This is in the great temple. They had in, obviously not in English, it said, know thyself over the temple door. I don't know what that was in the original language, but it's very powerful, know thyself. And the problem with being alive is that no one's going to tell you. Basically, everybody's making it up. And what's happened is, over thousands of years, people have come up with explanations that are awesome and did not involve dying early, which is good as a starting point. Not dying early gets my vote. So people keep doing that. Don't eat the red berries, that's a really bad idea. Eat the blueberries, they're awesome. Nobody eats the red berries except that dead guy over there, who was the individual. And this predigested thinking is extremely efficient. It turns out that we're evolved to think as little as possible, because thinking uses a lot of energy, and energy in the wild is in short supply. So to avoid us thinking too much, we just do what everybody else is doing, which is how the news agencies around the world control us. Because they tell us, don't think about that really terrible thing that some people are doing. Look at Justin Bieber's on a date, or what's the other one? Kim Kardashian. I think it's hilarious. So, as creatures, as beings, we spend our lives hoping that as pattern-finding primates, we will identify some explanation for who we are and what we should do. And the existentialists referred to this as existential angst. You have anxiety about doing the wrong thing because you don't have enough facts and you don't have enough objective awareness and that kind of thing. I think they should have shaved off the silly beards and spent more time with girls, and they would have then had existential joy. Because if somebody gives you a bad brief, a client, you're going to get lots of these. They give you a bad brief, and the brief just doesn't give you enough information, and so you ask the client for more information and they refuse. It's not your fault if you do it wrong. If you have integrity and you intend to work hard and you intend to do your best and you want to bring what you can to the production, but it doesn't work out the way the client wanted, it is not your fault. Just remember that, by the way. I mean that in a very basic way, that you have a right to clear briefs from your client, unlike life, which is the ultimate bad brief. Because we're all asking for explanations. It's not coming. We get a sense of it. We find some truth that works for us. But this means you cannot do it wrong. So you should have existential joy, because it means that everything you do is right. And we think too much about decisions when we should instead think about consequences. Now, how does this relate to film? Well, in life, we look at a choice and we think, well, which consequence do I want? Which one matters the most to me? How do I want to be changed by this experience? Who do I want to become? And why? Well, I don't know why, so let's just go for it. The beauty of being a filmmaker, as I have learned from working on lots of awful films, some of them are okay, but I should just explain. I won Best Director in Monaco a couple of years ago, and I got an award as a screenwriter, big national award. Thank you. Oh, come on, let's have the applause. Come on. Okay, thank you very much. This is live, isn't it? So for anybody at home, they're actually getting $5 every time they applaud. So, no, I was joking. It was a joke. It's just a joke. What was it? So now I'm giving you the quantum uncertainty principle there. It's the Schrodinger's $5. So as a screenwriter, I'm an award-winning screenwriter, award-winning director, but most of the films I made were absolutely awful. And by the way, making terrible films is a fantastic way to learn how to make films, because when you get to the cutting room, you realize it absolutely makes no sense. Next time, what happens is, after a while, you get a kind of spidey sense on set. You'll be on location, and something will say, I got a feeling that someone's aiming a gun at me from this, or there's, that continuity isn't going to work. It's not going to cut together. It's experience that brings wisdom. Sadly, not age. Sorry to break it to you, but it's experience. So, the beauty of filmmaking is that, unlike life, you do know why every single thing happens. There is no exception to that rule. Unless you're a Dadaist, which is awesome. It's my favorite art form. When Dadaism came out, when was it, the 20s? I forget. Yeah. 1800s, 20s. There was one guy ate spiders and swore at religious people for his art. There was other people who ran in slow motion. There's a beautiful video online, you can find it, of people running in slow motion. And you've got all the passers-by looking at them, thinking, what's going on? And they've got wires in their scarves so they can run like this, because that was their art. I love Dadaism, it's very good. Postmodernism, yeah. But you, as a storyteller, using film as a medium, And again, when I say film now, I mean reality itself as a medium, have the power to define why for everything. Why are they wearing those clothes? Why did they say those words? Why did they react that way? Why was the gun missing the bullets? Why was that person happy? So why is ultimately the critical question for any director, any storyteller, any writer. And I'm afraid it is your job. So if anybody ever says to you, why is this thing this way in the story, you don't get to say, I don't know. You can say, that's a great question. You can say, yes. Well, it's hard to explain. Why is that? Just give me a moment while I work out how to explain. So, but you do get to define why. You define the causality. In philosophical terms, has anyone heard of a prime mover? Anyone heard of a prime mover? An unmoved mover. Oh, wow, there's some philosophy students here. Remind me to tell you my multidimensional theory of consciousness. It's awesome. But I won't do that today. It's better with whiskey. So, you get to define why. And that means that at the deepest level, you get to define the journey for your audience and bestow upon them the wisdom of experience that your characters discover. This is powerful stuff. But then again, what do we mean about why? What what is the issue? What are we talking about? Well, ultimately, it was an old psychic I met years ago, and I'm not going to define that word. They could be just crazy, but he defined himself as a psychic, and I took his word for it. And he told me that he had been meditating, and when he was meditating, one of his spirit guides came to him. We're going to do philosophy, physics, we'll cover sociology later. His spirit guide told him that every emotion that a human being feels is rooted in one of just two places: love and fear. And I have to say, I've never been able to come up with an argument against it. And actually, I mentioned earlier this author Richard Bach in Illusions, and if you haven't read Illusions, I highly recommend it. There's a fantastic analogy in there for film and reality itself, which is one of the reasons I became a filmmaker. And I always wanted to meet the author to shake his hand and thank him for writing the book. And now he's asked me to direct the feature film adaptation. Thank you for those reactions, that's awesome. So we're in talks, and I don't want to jinx it, but Harrison Ford's got the script. This is an actual thing. And we'll see. I'm just saying this now because I think that working on a project like that is a little bit like buying a lottery ticket. You might as well enjoy imagining winning. The chance of you winning, in the UK we have a European lottery, and they worked out the chances of you winning are equivalent to the chances of you being struck by lightning 3 times. But people win. And they say, well, I'll come to that later. So, love, it's dramatic tension. So, love and fear and happiness. When you're working out your characters, when you're working on a story, and you're trying to decide why, it's critical that you know, as an originator, as a prime mover. So a prime mover in philosophical terms is something that causes change without having been caused. So there's a big debate about free will. Does such a thing exist? Personally, I don't think so. I think individual free will is a delusion, sorry. But I think there is such a thing. I think we're individuated consciousness, not individual consciousnesses. And if you think about things that way, it's very interesting. Just think about that. At least there's some interesting ideas in terms of storytelling. But you must know if a character is making a decision rooted in love or fear. Now, love is expansive, it's eternal, it's infinite, it never gets tired, it's embracing. And fear is all about barriers and walls and protection, justice, damage. Now, is your character reaching out to shake hands with someone? Is anyone, God, the title's gone out of my head now. Oh, it'll come back to me. I can't even think of a single bit of detail about the film. It's a bit where Leonardo DiCaprio has to shake this guy's hand and he doesn't want to. And Django Unchained, thank you. I remember moments, I never remember whole films. I'm very bad with space and time, by the way, as well. This is why I got lost on the way here, inside the hotel. It's true. So, when Leonardo DiCaprio, who is a great actor, I just mentioned that because he deserved that award. When Leonardo DiCaprio goes to shake the guy's hand, when he goes through that movement, was he acting in love or fear? It's fear. They say anger and hatred, they're just fear turned outwards. He so reviles that other character that he can't shake his hand. He will not shake his hand. Now, where drama comes, where the development of characters comes, is in the disparity between the need, which is always good, by the way. Nobody makes a bad decision on purpose. Your characters will always have reasons that are good, solid reasons for everything they do. There's a disparity between reasons and solutions. Sometimes solutions are stupid. So a classic example is, you're in a bar, someone spills your pint. In East London, they would say, "Oh, you spill my pint, what's that?" It's my Cockney accent, isn't it? So, I'm from East London, actually. So, the person whose pint was spilled decides to punch the other guy. Why? That seems such a nonsensical solution, doesn't it? But it's only nonsensical if you don't see violence as a solution. If you see violence as a solution, it might make great sense. If you grew up in an environment where not being respected could literally mean you're killed, then earning respect is worthwhile. In fact, claiming respect, demanding respect, destroying anyone who doesn't respect you is worthwhile. Now, the need is valid. To be respected is critical for us as a social primate species. We need to connect because in the wild we could die if we don't get access to resources, if we don't participate in that social glue. It's important to be respected. But that solution of punching the other guy may not be a good one. Many years ago, I was in a bar and I turned around and I bumped into a lady who had a pint. She was wearing a leather jacket. The pint went all over her chest. It was absolutely nightmarish. I was in the middle of apologizing and offering to help mop it up, but then I shouldn't do that either. And then her enormous boyfriend turned around and looked down at me and said, "What was that?" And I could see the look in his eye when he was thinking, "Shall I punch him?" It was an incredible moment where I didn't quite see my life flash before my eyes, but at least the last half hour, I think, flashed before my eyes. So, is it love or fear? Now, there's that old quote, was it John Lennon? The teacher said, "What do you want to do with your life?" And he says, "I want to be happy." And the teacher says, "You don't understand the question." He says, "No, you don't understand life." And they say the secret of life is to find out what you love and do that. But the challenge is, how do you know what you love? And I think the answer is, whatever makes you feel more alive. Whatever makes you feel the most alive, the most life force inside of you, is probably what you love. So how do you build that into your characters? How do you get your characters to make choices on that basis? Well, I've just given it to you. Just give your characters needs that you know, right? You don't have to tell your audience. You don't even have to tell the actor. But give your characters reasons that are good, know if they're rooted in love or fear, and then give them a solution, which is either stupid or genius, or somewhere in between. We tend to amplify things in films. So, in the Maxim pours a pint on some poor lady's chest scenario, we'd end up taking out the entire bar having a fight, like Kill Bill. But that's just really amplifying the message. So, all characters will always seek happiness. Their drive will be rooted in love or fear. Their solutions will be born of experience. Experience is the product of what's going on around you right now and your nature. It's nature and nurture. The things you experience are not all exterior. So if I say tree, everyone in the room pictures a tree. Unless you're kinesthetic, in which case you feel the bark. Or you're auditory, you hear the wind rustling in the leaves. That's you, right? So, I think I'm communicating with you. What I'm actually doing is triggering internal experiences. Isn't that powerful? When you write lines of dialogue, the words have such power that you involuntarily force your audience to have experiences that are internal. But when I said tree, you all pictured different ones. Isn't that brilliant? Different ages, different maturity, different species, different settings. And the tree that you pictured may well have been associated with a personal experience. And that personal experience may have an emotional charge attached to it, an emotion that moves you in a way that I did not. I just said tree. And you started having an emotion that had nothing to do with me. I didn't cause it, I triggered it. That's how communication works. If anyone's heard of the system of non-violent communication, I recommend that book for everybody. It's mind-blowing. It talks about these ideas. When you're devising characters and you're telling stories and you're making films, you, as the storyteller, I'm just going to presume you're all directors here, but you could be actors, you could be editors, choosing the most authentic performance. You do know that backstory. So, dealing with love and fear in filmmaking is about knowing all of that stuff that builds up to this moment. And there's a fantastic, if you ever get the chance to visit London, there's a guy in London called Simon Phillips. He's an extraordinary director's trainer. I went to one of his classes, the first time I had training in directing in 15 years. And I went in thinking, yeah, I know how to direct. It's lovely because there's 8 or 10 directors in the room, and you'd think we'd all be saying, no, clear the way, I'm going to do this, you know, the exercises. But what actually happens is everyone in the room says, no, after you, no, please, no, I don't know what I'm talking about, you go ahead. Or maybe that's a British director's class. I don't know. It's true in Britain that if somebody bumps into you, you should apologize too. I don't know why, it's just what we do. So, he says if you want to get a performance from a character, what you should not do is say to people, I'll give you a perfect example, is, so one person's walking into the room, and it's a cafe, and in the cafe there's another guy, there's 2 guys, there's a guy walks in the room, he sees the other guy, and what you want is a mixture of anger and fear. So you say to the actor, they say, well, you know, what's my motivation? What's my objective, my super objective? And you say, well, you're angry with that guy and you're afraid of him. Okay, awesome. So they go away and they act like, I don't know what I'm doing. So, and then you do a take and you say, that was really great, because you've got to encourage your cast. That was really great. Kind of not feeling it. I want to just see where we can go with this. Doesn't work. I can't instruct you to feel something. Why would you expect to instruct your actors to feel something? That's nonsense. So what Simon Phillips says is genius. He says, what you do is you take them aside, and this is really critical. When you're giving direction to an actor, you want to make sure that you give them the direction with the emotion that you want them to feel. Which means you have to be an actor too. You need to step into that dialogue either with whether it's anger or happiness or joy, sadness, love. Speak in that way, because you'll be, I can't describe it, you'll be encoding it, you'll be impressing upon them the feeling. Because of mirror neurons, they'll watch you feeling it, and it'll help them to understand. So you take them aside and you say, that guy, just come over here. You actually don't know that guy. But the last time you saw him, actually, you just went for a drink, nice quiet night out with your mates. You went to a bar, minding your own business. You're holding your pint. You turned around. That guy was absolutely full down drunk, took one look at you and punched you in the face. He hit you so hard, he knocked a tooth out. You lost a tooth. You had to go to they got it, they can fit, if you get the tooth, by the way, if you lose a tooth, go straight to a dentist, they can put it back in. But it's horrible. But just so you know, that's a thing, right? So you can do that. So you got the tooth, it took months to heal. You never met him, you didn't know who he was, and you've never seen him since. Run the scene. Now I would do it with a little more aggression. You know, that guy, you've no idea who he is. You don't know his name. You don't know what to do about it. You get the other guy, you take him aside. You say, see that guy? You've no idea who he is, but you're sure you've seen him somewhere. And it's one of those people where you're not sure whether you like him. Like, is he an old friend that you've forgotten? Or is he, like, did you ever fight with him once? Or, I don't know. But you definitely recognize that guy. But just, run the scene. Now, you've given both of them backstory. They don't have to act. They just have to remember the story. And the feelings will come naturally. So as a director, my advice to actors is if you're not feeling it, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see anything. And that works really well because when you go into shock, when the emotion that you feel is so powerful that it overwhelms your personality actually just goes on hold. If you're so overwhelmed, you go completely blank. If you Google it, you can look up on YouTube, you can see there's videos of people in shock and they're just, and you can take them by the hand and lead them anywhere and they'll just go. And that's being in shock. So if you want your actor to be absolutely overwhelmed with emotion, don't have them going, I could have been somebody. It's my Oscar-winning performance, thank you very much. Just get them to give you nothing. I always tell actors, if you're not feeling it, I don't want to see it. And it's not your job to come up with the feelings, it's mine. It's my job, it's my responsibility. If it's right, I promise to tell you it's right. And it's my job to tell you, and it's my responsibility, so I will look good or bad as a director. If it's not right, I also promise to tell you. And I'm going to give you the feelings. Just relax. You're not acting for the camera, or the audience, or the crew. I'm your audience. Just act for me. And when you say that to actors, they just... You can see them, their shoulders relax, they breathe. And one of the other things I do is I insist on saying action and cut. And when everyone's rolling and the camera's set, you get that magic moment where the DP or whoever it is, somebody will turn to you on set and say, set. And then you just wait. There's a moment before a storm where the wind stops. You're at the center of that low pressure dip. The wind stops completely. The birds stop singing. There's absolute quiet. And that is a state of pure potential. And that is the state that you want on set when you're filming. It works in documentary as well. If you're filming interview subjects and they're distracted by noise and blah, blah, blah stuff going on, your brain precognitively subtracts unhelpful information from your conscious experience, like this air conditioning noise that you've all been actively ignoring until this moment. Sorry. But it takes brain power to do that. It reduces concentration. So sometimes it's best to call it out and say, oh, that's annoying, isn't it? That thing's going on. How annoying. And then you allow your subject to be aware of it, and they'll relax. What you need is to create an environment of pure potential. And sometimes I'll make everybody wait for 5-10 seconds. And at the beginning of the shoot, everyone thinks I'm crazy, or I've forgotten. In fact, on more than one occasion, I've had the DP say, cut, did you realize we were rolling? Yeah. No, I'm nicer than that. But if you catch the moment when your actors are perfectly present, that's when you'll get the authentic performance. And my rule is nobody gets to say cut except me. And you're not allowed to come out of character. And you're not allowed to end the scene. In fact, it isn't a scene, it's a thing happening. When I say cut, we cut. So again, we usually get one or two false starts where somebody thinks I haven't noticed and somebody else says cut, and I say, I emote. Anyone studied Stanislavski and prana rays? Very sharp prana rays at the DP. Never works. So it's like trying to get served at a bar. I always try prana rays, it doesn't work. So, you're going to think I'm an alcoholic. I drink very little, by the way. This is just for comic effect. If you make the cast wait after the lines are finished, what you'll get on camera will be the cutaways you will use in the edit. Just try it. Because what you get is the actors just looking at each other, absolutely present. And every now and then, they'll look down and they'll, that's a glass. And they'll look back at each other again. And those cutaways look exactly like somebody intently listening. It's like audiences, unfortunately, being confused and being bored and being fascinated. They're almost identical. So I'm going to presume fascination. But you can interchange those shots in the cut. Remember, your job as a filmmaker is not to accurately portray what occurred. Your job is to create an experience for the audience. And those are not the same thing. I believe in naturalistic filmmaking, which is about the authenticity of the emotional journey, rather than cinema verite, which is a thing, and that's valid, and it's just not my thing, it's just not my bag. I want to show you a clip from a film. So, that's my calendar, we don't need that, I'm very busy. Let's get rid of that. My endless list of things to do. I use Evernote, by the way, just as a purely technical thing. Let's save that. Just as a purely technical thing. Has anyone ever heard of the book Getting Things Done? A very famous book. I never finished reading it. It's true. But I don't know if we can get the audio. Let's just see if the audio will come out of here. Hold on. Because we did have this working earlier. It came out of the TV. Yes, we can do this. Oh, we haven't got an amp, have we now? Hold on, I think we can do it. Boom. Okay. So this film was BAFTA shortlisted, didn't get a BAFTA, unfortunately, but I almost feel like saying the word BAFTA in the context of this film is a win. So this film is about the way that feelings and emotions are contagious. Because people will feel what you feel. It's one of those things, when you meet somebody, especially when you're starting out in the film industry, it's a lot of VIP nonsense. It's a lot of who knows who. Or as they say, it's about who knows you, really. But it's also about what they think of you. Because, if they know you and they think you're an arse, not so good. But if they know you and they think you're awesome and they want your company, great. For what it's worth, usually the most magnetic, attractive, charismatic part of you is your humanity. It's the part of you when you go to a party and you say, how are you doing? And they say, fine. They say, how are you doing? And you say, well, I'm good, but I don't think I'm cool enough for this party. They're going to laugh and they're going to say, me too. And you're going to instantly have a connection with another human being. You're a human being before you have a job. And that's what people connect to. By the way, I hope you realize all the stuff I'm saying is about characters too, right? This relates to your characters. The good guy in the movie, or the what is the female the good protagonist? Unfortunately, we have a male-dominated language, and some of the male-female conversions don't work very well. The good guy and the good girl, completely different meaning, not very helpful, right? As I know from being slapped. No, it's So, where was I going with this? So when you meet somebody at a party, when you meet somebody at an event, whatever you believe about yourself, they will believe too. So I know a lot of actors, and when they meet people, they tend to apologetically say that they're an actor, which means that the listener feels sorry for them and doesn't really want to hang out with them because, you know, who wants to be hanging out with the moody person at the party? If you say, I'm an actor, you're awesome. That's, you know, you're instantly awesome. So know that you have worth, not because of the job that you do, but because in every second of every day, you represent pure potential. And drama is the fulfillment or the contradiction of audience expectation. So in every moment, you have the right, the freedom, and the power to just redefine what you are and who you are in that moment. You can do it tomorrow. You can even decide that you did it yesterday, even if you didn't, to give yourself a backstory. Yesterday, I decided I was an artist. I haven't painted a picture yet, but I'm thinking very artistic thoughts. That's how you become a director, by the way. You say these words, I am a director. Okay. It's true. So this film is about the way that movement and energy is contagious. There's no dialogue, so just watch the opening of this. It's called Wildfire. Okay. I can't turn down the volume on my own computer. So, isn't that beautiful? So what we wanted to do, it ends up with a beautiful kiss at the end, and I'll show you just the end of it. Look, here we go. It's lovely. There we go. And gorgeous. So that music was by a fantastic musician in the UK called Hannah Peel. She's an absolute genius. What else did I want to show you? Strong harp. Yeah, okay. Yep. Okay, good. So, where were we now? Is that working? Yes. Okay. So, when we set up that shoot, I asked the producer for 9 people, each with a video camera, each able to shoot with that video camera and with some kind of storage in it, with power and ready to shoot, because I wanted to do a 9-way split. That was the idea, that we would just shoot it and then we'd do a bit of a mixture of a multi-camera edit. The producer got me 3 people with about, I think we had 3 people with 3 cameras, and there was no couple. In fact, that couple, because I wanted a kiss at the end, the couple was actually the parents of the kids who'd come to chaperone the kids. It took 5 or 10 minutes of my best Jedi mind powers to get them to be in the film, without which there is no story. That's kind of the point of Boy Meets Girl. And you'll notice that you can't really see it too clearly. It takes a while to find it. There's one of the shots you can see. One of the characters is holding his wallet and pretending it's a camera. And nobody ever notices, right? Because your job is to create an experience for the audience, not necessarily to accurately portray it. There's another film, I think I've got a bit of the parties over there. And I'll show you this example right now. There's I think I have it. Yeah, so this film, don't worry about the lights, but this film, The Party's Over, I'll just go full screen this way. You can see how full of extras that room is, right? In my imagination. The brief was 12 extras, 8 minimum, because the whole point of the scene, it's a very emotional scene, it's very, very dramatic. I'll tell you about it in a second. It's called The Party's Over. You can see it online. It's a very personal scene, a very strong piece of dialogue, and I wanted the fact that in such a small space, it was inevitably a public dialogue to be part of the drama, part of that tension, because the solution to this problem, the need is for the characters to speak, to engage and connect, but to do so discreetly. So by creating that tension, where inevitably in a small, quiet space, or in a large space with a microphone, you're going to have that tension of what do we do? And there's a tipping point where the characters no longer care. Right? We've probably all had those moments where, I actually care more about my feelings in this moment than I care about those strangers hearing what I'm talking about. It's a real feeling. So 48 hours before the shoot, the producers told me they had 1 extra. I found 3 more the day before the shoot, and we had our 4 extras. And I want you actually to just watch the opening only of this. You're going to think I make films with no dialogue, but just watch the opening of this. Let me get this full screen. Perfect. Isn't that beautiful? Hardly anything happens. But I think, I mean, we're in a big group of people all looking cool, but it's mesmerizing. This guy comes in and he's obviously anxious and tense. We don't know why. The girl comes in, and instead of saying, "Hi, I'm so pleased to see you," they both just look at each other. It's all backstory. And it's all revealed in the story why they respond that way. This is Claire Garvey. She's incredibly talented. She was just in Northern Soul. George Khalil was in the September tapes. And you can see as the story progresses, it becomes rather unhappy. He's very good at frowning. He actually got... The story is about a girl who's assaulted at a party. It's about date rape. It's very serious. And we wanted to show that when these things happen, people don't always respond in the right way. When everyone has this thing that you tell people and they'll say, "Oh my dear, I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm with you. What can we do for you?" But actually, some people respond the wrong way, and some people are abusive and aggressive about it, and they blame. And also, we have this idea that when someone's assaulted, that they're just going to be strong and not going to let this affect them, and it's nonsense. People who are attacked in that way are usually very deeply affected for a very long time. And when we ran the screen tests, we had a lot of actresses coming in who had this bold, I'm not going to let this affect me kind of thing going on. It's just, and I couldn't get them to stop doing it. And it was Claire who came in and was just, wow, just in the screen test. In fact, her performance there was so powerful. This is absolutely true. The crew were welling up watching her performance on set as she finally shares how she feels. The crew were wiping their eyes. Crew on a film set. So she's a fantastic actress. I was very proud to work with her. But we wanted to show this conflict where characters aren't always finding good solutions. And so, as you're producing these stories, think about the terrible ways people come up with solutions to things. And as long as they're authentic, remember it's rooted in a positive reason, and that reason is going to be coming from love or fear. There's going to be some authenticity to it. But when I'm working with actors and I'm screen testing, there's really just one thing I worry about. And this is very useful, by the way, if you're looking at casting actors. Most directors, we have this hubris, we have this belief that we could get an incredible award-winning performance from a brick if we had to. Give me enough time and we'll work it out. But one of the things that's extremely difficult to do that with is to get the actors to be present, to get them to be here now, in this moment, with you. And so when you are conducting screen tests, casting calls for your work, you really want to make sure that they are there with you before you do anything else. And you can tell by the time they sit down. But if you give them direction and they don't take it, you might as well say goodbye, because they could be an incredible actor and they could be great at working with another director. They just can't work with you. So save yourself the pain. And Claire was incredibly present. I'm working on a project. The next project that I'm directing is called Jolie's Garden. Check out joliesgarden.com or Jolie's Garden. Est-ce que vous parlez le français? Anybody speak French? Malheureusement, je ne peux pas parler le français. That means I can't speak French, unfortunately. That's my French joke. It's the only one. Japanese. Nihongo ga skoshi wakarimasu ka? Hai, sugoi. So that's all of my Japanese. Jolie's Garden is about a girl in an underground garden. She's lived there her entire life, and she doesn't know that the garden's artificial, or that she's blind, or that she's a prisoner. And the story is about why she's there and what happens to her. And I needed a character whose performance was mesmerizing. We were speaking about this last night. If you've ever seen anybody practice Tai Chi, I teach Tai Chi Chuan, the martial art. And when you see someone practice Tai Chi, it's just so. It's not moving my hand here or somewhere like this, it's here. And the reason it's here is because you're creating potential. So if you find actors that can do that, they will be quite fascinating on camera. It's a lot less work for you as a director. Now, one little note as well, after working on all these films, I directed a lot of short films. You're going to find that you have a lot of technology challenges. How much time can I go over? 1 minute? None?
You can go over. Is everyone okay with staying in for about
5?
minutes?
Okay. Okay, fine. You're going to come up against endless technical challenges. They are as inevitable as alarm clocks, and taxes, and my terrible jokes. Just, and as no, hang on. So, never hold back from making a film because you don't think you've got the best technology. When you're starting out making films, nobody cares if you shot in 1080, 2K, 4K, or 8K. Nobody cares. If you have to choose between good pictures and good sound, always choose good sound. Audiences are much less tolerant of sound problems than visual problems. They say that if you make a film that has bad visuals, or good visuals and bad sound, they'll say that was a great student film. And if you make a film with bad visuals and good sound, they'll say that was a very interesting experimental film. So always go for good sound if you can. When you're working with people, some people are going to give you conflict. And it's usually because they're acting out of fear and because they've got bad solutions. And if you're acting out of love, which of course you are always doing, right? Always. Then you have to find some way of dealing with it. Now, if you deal with conflict by giving conflict, what you're going to get is more conflict, which is very productive, but not very helpful. In my experience, the best way to deal with people who bring conflict is with compassion. Because the chances are their reason is great, but their solution is stupid. And you need to have empathy, sympathy, understand, care. I was working on a film set, I was a TV pilot, and the lighting guy, the gaffer, kept making noise when I called for quiet on set for a rehearsal. And by the third time I realized he was doing it, he was ignoring my request for quiet on set, which I thought was quite interesting. So I went and spoke to him and I said, you're just so you know, I called for quiet on set and it was distracting for the cast. And he said, listen, my boy, which was great. No, it was great. Because where was he acting from? Fear, right? Obviously, he was attacking me. He was trying to demean me, which meant that he was anxious about something. He said, listen, my boy, I've got 40 years experience in this business. You don't need to tell me when to be quiet. I'll be quiet when it matters. Fantastic, that's two things. Now he's trying to domineer me. But let's just think about who's who in this situation. He's the gaffer, I'm the AD. Who's in charge? Me. So I said, your experience is a multiple of mine, and it's a privilege to work with you. And I know that I'm going to learn a lot from working with you, and I'm grateful that you're with us. But I'm the assistant director on this shoot. And if I ask for quiet on set, she's got to have it. And he literally, like a cartoon, grumbled away. It was like one of those characters going around. Next time I called for quiet on set for rehearsal, he happened to be in the room with us, and he kicked a light. The base of the light, the lamp, he kicked it. And I looked at him, and he looked across the room at me, and he literally went... And he was a pussycat for the rest of the shoot. What he was afraid of was not being acknowledged. I used to work in technical support for Microsoft. I developed a George Clooney doctor's voice to deal with people's problems. So they'd say, oh, my computer's trying to kill me. And I would say, don't you worry about a thing. It's going to be okay. I'm going to fix your computer. It's going to be it's my problem now. Don't you worry. That's great. I had marriage proposals. So what I learned is that when someone has a problem, the first thing they need is not a solution. Guys, this is for you especially. The first thing a person needs with a problem is not a solution. The first thing they need is to be heard. And it's not enough to hear them. You have to persuade them you have heard them. It's not the same thing, right? Communication's about being understood. After you persuade someone you've heard them, you can come up with solutions. So when you're faced with conflict, respond with compassion, and you get tea. Usually drinking tea. Now, I like tea. So, very quickly, very quickly, because I know I'm out of time. As a director, your job is to create the space. You are the person whose feelings will most influence the feelings of everybody else on set. Doesn't matter what you're working on. Actually, it doesn't matter if you're the CEO of a company, the producer of a documentary, or the director of a fiction film. How you feel will shape the feelings of everybody in your environment. The way I feel now is shaping the way you feel now. Isn't that beautiful? Because I feel, kind of cool. So you should feel cool. Everybody in the world is cool. So remember this, because if you're in charge, whether you like it or not, your words carry more power and more weight and more influence than anybody else in the room. So never insult anybody that you work with. Never put anybody down. Talk about challenges, not problems. Laugh when the camera breaks in two. I've literally had that on a shoot. You have to be the one that's bigger than this problem, because if you are, everybody in the room will trust you and they will follow you to that furthest peak. And last of all, as an old psychologist friend of mine said, you're not what you think you are what you think. Whatever you focus your attention on, you become. And that applies creatively, it applies career-wise. Whatever you focus on, you'll become. And on that note, and the individuated consciousness is, when you meet people, you can either meet them as if they're strangers, or work on the basis, the presumption, that we're all one. Just try it out. You'll discover that you make close friends instantly. Don't discover one another, remember one another. And my name's Maxim Jago. Thank you very much. You're not getting the $5, just so you know. Thank you. Thank you very much for coming along. Enjoy the show.